Mr. Gerald Jens from IMG, the Pittsburgh Church.
Sorry about that.
Jared did his homework. I talked all about Armstrong Atlantic and Southern Miss and all these other great places that I've been here recently. How are you guys doing this morning? This afternoon, I should say. Pizza good? I told Dr. Crow I'm going to Bob's Subs as soon as I get out of here. I remember years and years ago coming up, and it hasn't changed. When I first started coming, when I first got to Western Pennsylvania, my first trip to Slippery Rock was probably some event similar to this, maybe not as equal. This was a dry town. I don't think it's a dry town anymore. You guys take a brief benefit of that. I'm not going to talk about all that, but it's a fun deal. So, Slippery Rock University, what a place, what a renowned place of sport administration. I think you guys might be known for sport administration more than you know anything else, believe it or not, as a whole. That's a credit to those two people back in the back of the room, Dr. Hicks and Dr. Crow.
And Dr. Ed.
And Dr. Exactly. So, Dr. Crow and I go back quite a ways. I first met Dr. Crow when I moved to Pittsburgh through a common friend of ours at Southern Miss, where I did my graduate work. So, and I'll get into some details. He's a good friend of mine. I can tell you this, he's one of the best in the business, and so many people know him around, well, I should say the universe, but certainly around Western Pennsylvania and beyond. But, so sport administration, you guys probably want to know how I get a job in sport administration once I'm done with my coursework and all that other jazz. And we'll get into some of that too. My story, some of it's luck of the draw, some of it's timing, some of it's hard work on my part. I always wanted to be a coach. Some of you probably do too, whether it be football, basketball, volleyball, whatever the case may be. Some of you want to be an athletic director. Some of you may want to be an equipment manager. Some of you may want to handle the financial part of being an athletics. There's a lot of opportunities out there and a lot of directions that you can go. I would suggest from the start, and this will be kind of a common theme, you need to dream big and you need to stick to those dreams at times. It's not always going to be easy. You're not always going to make the same amount of money that somebody graduating in finance is going to make. All right, not in the beginning. All right, if you work hard and reach those financial goals, those personal goals, having a family, having a nice house, all that can be made possible. But you got to have some what I would call stick-to-itness. Okay, so that's clear. So dream big. All right, and never feel like your dreams are waning. Whatever you think that's going to happen, go back to those original dreams that you had. I thought I'd teach and coach, and I thought making 40 grand was like the best thing possible back in 1996. I was a collegiate baseball player at a school very much like Slippery Rock, Armstrong Atlantic State University. They're part of the Peach Belt Conference down in Savannah, Georgia. And coming out of there, part of what happened with me was I took some business courses, and part of our assignment was to do a website. Now, I want to date myself here, but in 1996, believe it or not, they were just starting internet and websites. All right, I'm not that old. Dr. Crow's old. I know Dr. Hicks, but Dr. Hicks is old too. Right? But I don't consider myself that old, but I look back in time, that's been 15, 16, 17 years ago now. And it was just getting started. It was just getting emails out and so on. Well, where am I going with this? Armstrong Atlantic hosted the Peach Belt Athletic Conference tournament for basketball. Well, up until that point, I had developed a full website for all our sports for Armstrong Atlantic. So imagine being in Slippery Rock and them not having a website, not knowing where to go for information on football, men's basketball, baseball, where they're playing, what times, track. Somebody saw that I did that website and said, you know what? I was a graduate assistant. I worked at Southern Miss. They don't have a website. This is 1998 at this point. So I got a graduate assistantship to get my master's in sport administration at Slippery Rock. Right? So now I'm thinking, I got the baseball, a collegiate player or whatever, got that on my resume, got a 4-year degree, graduated cum laude. Now I'm going to Southern Miss, a Division I school. In our schedule, we opened up at Penn State that year, okay? The previous year they had finished 13th in the country. Had played Florida, had Texas A&M rolling in. We're going to Alabama that year. It's a big time thing for me. They didn't have a website, so I took advantage of that opportunity. Now, I don't know what opportunity there is coming. There may be somebody that doesn't have Facebook or Twitter, or somebody to manage that at some maybe Division I or some other Division II that you can get your master's degree. But you got to think in that regard. You never know what opportunity is going to come up. There may be a graduate assistantship available for equipment, or some of you probably played on some of the sports teams here. Whatever sports you're in, whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, or football, there's some GA job available. You can ask your coaches, you rely on these guys up here, these professors that you have to help you kind of get those opportunities in that by way of letter of recommendation and so on. Okay, everybody with me so far? All right, now, everyone's story is different. That was right place, right time. But I can tell you, at some point in time, the graduate assistantship thing ends, and you got to go work. Okay, you got to go work. So I was lucky enough that somebody at the University of Pittsburgh knew somebody at Southern Miss at the right time for me to come and do a paid internship at Pitt. From there, I was right place, right time. I put on a life skills type of a deal. You guys know what life skills are for collegiate student athletes, where they try and place you in avenues and get you with right people to prepare you for life after being a Division I or Division II college athlete. Okay, so then they have a financial seminar that says, hey, this is how you manage your money. Just simple life skills: checking account, make sure you balance checks, invest your money, that sort of thing. They talk about how to do a resume, that sort of thing. So these are things you guys probably do within your curriculum at some point in time toward the end, all right? They did this specifically at Pitt for student athletes. The Pirates are opening PNC Park the following year, and they were looking for somebody to run their ballpark operations, guest relations division. So you probably heard of Rob Thompson at some point in time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He did something very similar that I did with Three River Stadium at the time, and now the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had the opportunity to do exactly that with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So somebody saw me working, I networked, I shook hands, I smiled, I was eager to get feedback from those guys, and I networked and made sure I had their contact information, thanked them for coming, and I hoped I was fairly professional, but they hired me. So that was right place, right time again. So from there, I did go into sales about 3 years later. There was an opportunity to get there because I presented so much to all the staff that worked on game days at PNC Park from a training perspective. So how you present yourself is extremely important. Okay? How I'm dressed to you is extremely important. Some of you in this class per se, it may not be necessary to do that, but just know when it's time to button up, you better be buttoned up. All right? I'm going to an interview without a sport coat. Don't want to go on an interview without a tie. You want to dress for the position. Okay? You don't have to hate high school basketball or assistant basketball coach at high school. Dress for the position. Be buttoned up. Because believe it or not, you're representing those three professors in the back of the room, but more importantly, you're representing yourself and the pride of Slippery Rock. Okay? So remember that. There's more at stake than just yourself even in that case. There's a lot at stake for you because you reap the benefits. But these guys have success stories all over the place, and it's your job to carry that legacy. Okay? So for me, I wouldn't be carrying the legacy of Southern Miss, or Home Strike Atlantic for that matter, if I showed up here in jeans and a t-shirt. Right? Okay? Everybody follow me on that one? All right, so I get into sales with the Pittsburgh Pirates. The chief operating officer says, you know what? You present very well. You should be in corporate partnerships. We need to get you into sales. And I like that fact. The reason I like that fact, because one of the most important things in life is money, right? Sales offers you that opportunity, especially in sports, especially when you're in front of corporate partners. Okay, so everybody understand what corporate partnerships are? So when we go out trying to cultivate relationships with corporations to sponsor, whether it be the athletic program or the Pittsburgh Pirates Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Pittsburgh Steelers. You're out building those relationships. You're selling signage, you're selling radio, you're selling promotional activity, logo rights, using in conjunction with promotions out in the marketplace. This shouldn't be all that foreign to you, I would imagine, given the prowess of these guys out in the back of the ring. So I get into sales, there's an opportunity to make money, have a higher base salary. I want to go buy a house. This seems like a good fit for me. Sales isn't for everybody, but sales is a way to get your foot in the door. Whether it be ticket sales, or whether it be sponsorship sales, or service for that matter, and so on. I say that, but understand I have an operations background. Every segment of an organization has a role to play. Okay, so even though you make more money in operations, operations staff have more perks. Financial staff people, they control a little bit more different. So everyone has a way of maneuvering within an actual organization. All right. So I have friends that were in media relations, and that's their passion. That's what they love to do. They like writing press releases. They like being the guy right beside the head coach when it's time to get that on-camera interview. They like to be that person. It is what it is. I've got a little bit of media relations experience, a little bit of compliance experience. For me, I like meeting people. So for me, meeting people, there's not a better way to do that than in sales, especially corporate sales. All right, because a lot of times in ticket sales, you're kind of behind, you're kind of not seen all the time. You're on the phone, et cetera, et cetera. All right, how am I doing on time? Moving along? Okay. Jerry, you told me at 1:15 we're cutting you off, so you better rock and roll or we're going to cut you off, kick you out the door. How many of you want to be coaches? How many of you want to be in administration but not sure what part of sport administration you want to be in? All right. How many of, I don't know for sure where that puts everyone else. How many of you want to be equipment managers? How many of you want to be in compliance? Everybody know compliance in NCAA rules? Yes, you've got to be more legal-less. How many of you want to, how many of you are willing to do an internship that's unpaid? Okay, that's good. That's a good thing. How many of you would rather just go part-time and be done with it and then get a full-time job? It's a very, very good internship. So experience is invaluable. Because that's what they see on your resume and where you're from. They look at where you went to school. They know this product. In Western Pennsylvania, all the pro sports teams, especially the Pirates, they understand the prowess of this sport administration and such product. But there's only so many jobs. So you have to make sure that you delineate yourself from the ranks. Because there's people at Robert Morris trying to get those same jobs and those internships. You're going to have to go the extra mile, okay? In some cases, it may be, in my case, at Pitt. I'm going to get to Pitt here shortly. Where you drive down for 8 Saturdays to help them game. All right? Because you need that experience. You're close enough to Cleveland. Some of you may have to drive up to Cleveland, Ohio to work the summer at Jacobs Field, or Progressive Field, excuse me. Or for the Cavs, or for the Browns. Right as that may be. Right as that may sound. Those of you who live in West Pennsylvania. So, Youngstown State, same way. So, sorry, so you have to have that willingness to go above and beyond, because that's going to separate you from the rest. And when you're there at the Cleveland Browns, or you're there with the Pittsburgh Steelers, or the Pittsburgh Pirates, or whatever minor league team over in Youngstown, or whatever golf course that you're at, make sure virtually everyone comes through that door, you greet them and explain who you are, et cetera, et cetera. People who come out of town or people that you're working with, tell them your goals and aspirations. Sit down and ask other divisions or other departments about what they do and how they got in, exactly how I'm telling you guys. All right? All right, so now, continue. I'm with the Pirates, and I reached a point where I could do no more, or did see where I could do a lot more. So I'm faced with the decision to continue to grow and to continue to be in charge of the department, make more money, provide for my family, still work in sports, still fulfill my dreams. I'm faced with a decision. I'm the number 3 salesperson. I made the money I thought I'd make. Knew I could make more probably elsewhere, So now do I want to sell my house in Cranberry Township and uproot my 2 children now and my wife, who had just finished her graduate work here at Slippery Rock? Do I want to do that? It was worth the while to go take a look at that Christmas break of 2007, and what I found was an opportunity with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's nothing better than the NFL. I'm not going to lie to you. There's nothing better than working in the National Football League. Why is that? Can anyone guess? The first one. It's pretty obvious. Can anyone guess why it's better than working in the NFL?
Real big market.
Say it again.
Real big market.
That's not necessarily the case. Good try, but that's not necessarily the case. And I'll tell you why. Who else?
Most teams are fairly wealthy.
Well, that's a good guess, but not quite what I was looking for. Dr. Crow, I know you know the answers to your hand.
Oh, sorry. Fan base?
No, that's not necessarily the case either.
Makes the most money.
Pirates have a large
sport
fan
in
base.
the U.S.
Say it again.
It's the most visible sport in the U.S.
That. Now I got a family. There's 10 games at home. When I was with the Pirates in the first 3 years, I worked 81 games, 80 games, and 70 games. And the only reason I worked 70 is because they sent me somewhere else that first year to figure out how, they were running into new ballparks too. So think about that. Why would I work more for less money? That make sense to you guys? That's why the NFL, in my eyes, that's why the NFL is the best. Work more for less money. Work less for more money. Maybe I'm seeing something wrong. And that's part of the reason why. Yes, they are financially sound. Most teams are financially sound enough to pay what we need to be paid. So even the Pittsburgh Pirates, most people don't understand this. The Pirates actually make a lot of money. All right? The way the system's set up, there's a revenue share, they make a lot of money, they make plenty of money. They've chosen to spend it in different ways, and I think they're on their right track. Now, I was faced with another decision 3 years later, very similar. I had done about what I thought I could do with the Buccaneers, but this time I wasn't looking. I got a phone call that says, "Hey, do you want to come run your own sales department? Come back to Pittsburgh." All right. So I was achieving my financial goals. I was achieving the revenue goals the Buccaneers set out for me. I was coaching Little League in my spare time. I was living in Tampa area, Florida. The sun was always out. Life was great. But then someone came to me and said, "Listen, you have the opportunity to do this. You're going to almost double your salary. You're going to run your own staff. You know the athletic director. The athletic director at Pitt, Steve Peterson, loved the Tampa Bay model as far as how we sold sponsorships, which was a less is more model. So what that means is, instead of having 100 sponsors, which is about the average of professional sports teams, okay, and they can range from $1 million or so to $250. Instead of doing it that way, the Buccaneers were like, we're not doing it that way. The average sponsorship deal when I arrived in Tampa was $1.2 million per sponsor. We had 18 of them. All right? So I had a higher base salary. They would pay me more on the base because they knew we weren't going to get a lot of deals. When we got them, we got them. It was a big one. So I love that philosophy. Now, it's not quite the same at Pitt, but we're getting that way and trying to get it. So I tell you this because there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. There's a lot of ways to get to where you're going, because if Rob Thompson comes here, he's going to tell you a different story about how he got to the Steelers, okay? Or the next person that comes that works for the Browns, he's going to tell you a different story of how he got to the Cleveland Browns and the Cleveland Indians. And there's different ways of selling sponsorships. There's no right way. But the idea is for you to get experience at a place that you like, and then look for other opportunities while you're there. Because the more stagnant you stay, the less money you're going to make. Okay? And the less happy you're going to be. Because you can't, there's certain things you can control. You can control your happiness in a lot of ways. Okay? You can control it. But you got to work hard at what you do. Okay? You got to work hard at what you do. You have to network. That's the most important thing. You got to network. And don't be closed-minded. If I never left Pittsburgh the first time around, I would not be sitting in the chair I am today. So don't be afraid to move to achieve what you're trying to achieve. All of you didn't grow up in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. Some of you from Pittsburgh, some of you from Erie, some of you from across the state and west and eastern Pennsylvania. You know, so you made a move already, most of them. Okay, so you're braver than I was because I actually grew up in Savannah, Georgia. So I went to college about 1.5 miles from where I grew up. So you guys are a lot braver than I was at 18, 19, 20, 21. All right, so the difference between NFL, collegiate, MLB, and MLS, NBA included. You know, now there's turmoil right now in the NBA. You guys have been following that. I'm sure you guys have talked about that in class, Dr. Crow. You guys understand what I'm talking about? There's a lockout situation. The time I left the Buccaneers, we were technically in a lockout. When I came for my interview, we were in a lockout, so to speak. So I had a furlough week where I was unpaid. And I said, I'll come talk to you this week. I got no problem with that. No problem. It ended up being resolved. By that time, I think the opportunity presented itself. And you'll find that I am not special by any stretch of imagination. I am you guys 15 years ago. A little more, maybe 16 years. I was in your chair, not knowing in some cases where I was going next, didn't know how I was going to get there, you know, had an idea on how to write a resume, but that didn't mean anything. It was how was I going to get the experience to get to where I wanted to be. And I tossed around coaching basketball and coaching baseball and teaching and coaching in high school and, you know, compliance and everything else. But I really think I found my niche because I'm not afraid to come up and speak in front of somebody. And you have to have this skill to do this in front of you. Okay? I'm not envisioning at this point any of you, you know, you say envision them without clothes on and all that. That's long gone. Like those things, you have to get over that. And the more practice you have, and hopefully this is part of your curriculum, professors, that you guys have to get up and speak in front of people because if you can speak and you can write, whether you be in sports or out of sports, you can write your own ticket. All of you, I hate to tell you this, aren't going to get jobs in sports. Probably not going to happen. That's the reality of the situation in this day and age. Most of you will. That may be by choice that you choose not to go into sports down the road, but that's the reality of the situation. These guys probably know better than I do, you know, how many jobs there are open across the board in sports. But the thing that sports does is, and sport administration does for you, is it teaches you, you know, leadership, teamwork, and all those other strong qualities that a lot of companies and businesses are looking for. Now, I hate to tell you this, in the early going, those of you who don't go into sports, you're probably going to make more money than the ones that do go into sports. Catch-22. Listen, the one thing with me, Dr. Crow knows this, is I really don't lie to you. I mean, I'm not a liar. I tell you how it is. That's the reality of the situation. And that's not to discourage you. That's just to tell you that, hey, there's a reality. It will happen the way it's supposed to happen. If you put the work in, you'll get out of it what you put into it. Okay? Everybody clear on that? All right, so stay on track. Preparation is key. You know, I noticed the group from here that presented, you guys did a very nice job of that PowerPoint presentation. And that's key. I was very impressed with that. I told Dr. Crow, I said, listen, this guy got it together. And then I got to give it to you because I don't know that we talked about all that. So I don't know who you got your research from, or Dr. Crow was telling you what you should know, or Google, or what you do. I mean, yeah. See, you have more now. You guys have more access to stuff now than ever before. See, I'll probably on LinkedIn or Facebook, one or two, right? So you put that in, Gerald Jones, and it popped up without me really going into detail. I don't actually know that we talked. It was all by email. Yeah, I'm coming because Dr. Crow needed me. You know, or Dr. Crow for Dr. Crow. I mean, so that's all I said to him, and he got that much out of it. So that shows from a preparation standpoint, the easy things that you guys can do, staying ahead of the game, the curve. When you're sitting in front of somebody and you're interviewing, get the interview name, the proper way of spelling it. And clearly, you can get a lot of information on who that person you're sitting in front of. It opens up the door for conversation. Makes that person feel warmly about you. Okay, so if I'm interviewing with Paul Lucan for a part-time job in the athletic department to get started, well, Google Paul Lucan. You know, find out where he was before he was here. You know, what his mojo is, how he's done this, and how he's done that. These are things that are complete. And when you're done, I know they tell you this, make sure you follow up. Handwritten note, email. Some people like email better, but the handwritten notes are good. People appreciate the fact that you took the time to do it. I'm guilty of not doing as much as I should. especially with major corporate partners. I should do that more often. I typically do it by email now. Emails are a good resource, but don't over-email. I'll tell you that, because I get 425 emails a week at least, and sometimes they just get bogged down in it, and it's hard for me to respond to all of them. But when I see that physical note, I know it's special because you guys took the time to do it. When I was aspiring to be a basketball coach, I did camps. Went to Georgia Tech. I went to Georgia, Southern Miss, and Armstrong, Atlanta, and a few other schools. Traveled to Maryland, you know, great experience with some top programs. But one of the things that stuck with me most was something Ron Jerson said. Ron Jerson was the guy that replaced Tubby Smith at Georgia years ago. He's now on Tubby Smith's staff at Minnesota. He said the most important thing that you can ever give another person is time. So I appreciate your time for letting me come and share my story with you. And I wish you guys the very, very best in your endeavors. And Jared has my email address and all that, so he can forward that to you. I have the information. Dr. Crow knows how to get a hold of me. If there's ever anything we can do, we're going to start an academy at Pitt, where now I am the general manager for sponsorship sales. So I have a staff of 3 that sell, another service person. I report to a gentleman by the name of Rex Hogue, who actually oversees 8 IMG properties in the Big East Conference. We're also changing conferences, as you guys well know. But my job is, it hasn't changed, is to go out and cultivate relationships with businesses in Pittsburgh, get them to buy into sponsoring Pitt athletics. Okay, whether it be football, men's basketball, and women's basketball primarily. But the overall picture is to get signage and radio advertising, and do it in a way which kind of mirrors what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do. So that's my task, my responsibility. I'm housed at the Peterson Event Center, one of the greatest arenas in all college sports. You know, I'm selling, I feel fortunate because I'm selling for a top program. If you talk about men's basketball, they were the #1 seed in one of the regionals, as we all know. They did lose early in the Big East tournament. You guys probably follow. They lost to Connecticut. They lost in the second round of the NCAAs to Butler. Those 2 teams were in the NCAA final. Jamie Dixon thinks this is the best team coming this year. So stay tuned to Pitt men's basketball. Football, and we talk about high octane. You know, from a high octane standpoint, we finally saw the high octane against South Florida this past week. We should be 5-0. No question about it. We should be 5-0 right now. I was at Iowa. We're up 24-3 with 3 minutes to go in the 3rd quarter. And I'm telling you, I can smell a victory. One of the greatest sporting venues or sporting atmosphere you'll ever go to is the University of Iowa. They welcome you, kind of like you guys welcome people to Slippery Rock. They welcome people to Iowa City. It's unfortunate we didn't come away with that one, and it was freaking Irish. They got it. But that's neither here nor there. So I'm going to open up the questions now. I think Jared's listening. I just wanted to make sure that was a broad sense. I know I went through a lot of stuff really fastly. Anybody have any questions? Somebody got one there.
Which job did you enjoy doing the most out of all of them?
You know, it's early to say right now because the one I'm in, I'm only in it 3 months, and sometimes I feel like my head's buried in sand. Between email and answering email from IMG Corporate, answering email from the athletic department, and then I got 3 sales reps that want to know this, that, and the other, none of them about. I have a supervisor too. So, as of right now, there's no way I could say the Buccaneers wasn't the best one. You know, just quality of life. And let me say this to you too. You might think you want to live in Florida, but everything's not as kosher as you think it is in the state of Florida. There's a lot of good to living in Western Pennsylvania. I can promise you that. Especially when we talk about raising a family and so forth, and having that discussion. Living a great life. You know, the sun does come out 95% of the time. You know, the sun is out. That sun hits you too. But when it's 103 heated nights in July, not as fun as being in Western Pennsylvania when it's 80 inside. Okay, next question.
What was the hardest aspect of selling corporate sponsorships for you?
Well, you have to develop thick skin to say no to them, but also know that you're going to be told far often then you're told yes. Okay, so you're going to get told no 90% of the time. You're going to get told yes, we'll do the deal, maybe not at that rate that you asked for, we're going to do something like 10% of the time. So you have to understand that that's in corporate sales. And in ticket sales, your rate's a little bit higher, and that you're going to get more people to say yes to you for buying tickets, whether it's a single game, a season ticket package, what have you. But these corporate partnerships, especially when you ask for more money, you're going to get told no far more often than you get told yes. So you got you're sensitive. Might not make it.
How has the current economy affected sales and sponsorships, especially since when you first started in sales until now?
It's a very good question. So the question was, how has the economy affected sponsorship sales? There are still, let me say this, most organizations or companies don't want to hear the fact that the economy is down. They still got a number to hit. IMG, they got a number. They give Pitt a guaranteed set amount of money every year. We keep the rest. So everything we get, we keep the rest. There's a number I got to hit. In Tampa, it wasn't quite that bad, but we did realize. I'll give you the example. I talked about the average sponsorship that we had in Tampa for those 16, 17, 18 partners, 1.2 million. The ownership down there realized, wait a minute, we got to lower our threshold, and so instead of walking out the door with only a $395,000 package, 3-year term, that got lowered to some degree to where it's now, the 100, 200. So it used to be where if I came back, somebody said, yeah, we have 180,000 for you, and we have a 5-year term. They tell me to go fly a kite. I had one also, 300,000, because the company wasn't really a strong, sturdy company that hadn't been in business that long. We're not doing that because they couldn't pay us. That's the reality situation too. Ownership and sometimes management kind of dictate what you can and cannot take. So the economy, to answer your question, still companies, it's kind of aggressive. It's changed from just throwing signs up on the board, okay, which is what it was in the 90s, to now you got to have an activation plan. How am I going to activate this partnership? Radio advertising, I can go buy a lot cheaper with someone else, with Clear Channel or with CBS Radio. You have to kind of be more creative and come up with different ideas. The money's still out there. There's a lot of money still out there. Have sponsorship sales going down ever so slightly? Yes. But not to the point where we're still good. There's still a need out there. People still want to activate in sports because as long as there are people like you who are probably crazy sports and love sports and watch it all the time, there's a need for companies to try and market too. Any more questions? What we got?
Do you offer any internships, especially in the spring coming up?
Well, there's internships everywhere, and especially in the spring. I haven't determined that just yet because the way we're set up, my division, I'm just one kind of department within, even though I'm IMG Sports Marketing. I am part of the athletic department, but yes, they do have internships. It's just a matter of and there will be some open. Right now is actually time to start applying for those. So you guys know where to go. It's Teamwork Online. It's obviously NCAA.org. I don't recommend paying for anything. I don't know if that is what your mojo is, but there's some websites they make you pay to go and find out about the opportunities. I don't recommend that. There's plenty of them out there. Be aggressive. Write the organizations. Pick out the top 10 organizations you want to work for, schools you want to work for, and write their human resources, write that department head that you want to work for. Be aggressive. Send it out there. I'll give you another example. I'm getting ready to come here, back to Pittsburgh, and I find out my number 2 salesperson, who's supposedly on my staff, is a good seller, is being promoted to go to St. John's to be the general manager there. Well, I was still in Tampa, didn't really know that I was actually coming here, but I called the guy and said, hey, listen, we work at Pirates. Are you interested in coming if I come? Be aggressive. And that was my former employer. Was that the right thing to do? Ethically? They could have paid me the rest of my commission and I might not have done it. When I left, they skipped a month commission on me. So I said, I'm going to be aggressive here. This guy's good, he's in the marketplace, I'm going to get him. You know what I mean? It's cutthroat when it comes down to business and money. You're looking out for yourself at some point. And I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but be aggressive because sometimes people don't know about the opportunities they need to come to you. They don't come to you just immediately. You need to go get them. So my advice to you is figure out what the top 10 are Email Dr. Crow, I'm sorry,
Abney,
Dr. Abby,
Abney.
Dr. Abney. Dr. Hicks said, do you guys know anybody at these places? You never know what they're going to say. All right? Depending on what part of the state you're from, part of the Commonwealth you're from Ohio, you never know. Or somebody may know somebody somewhere else. Email me, ask me if I know where it is. You know, I have no problem with that. You know, that's how it works. Okay? So be aggressive. Pick out the top 10 places you think you might want to do an internship this spring or in the summer, and go after it. All right? There are people who appreciate that. Oh, this kid, he wants to get after it. You know. Any more questions? Don't be bashful.
Do you find it a lot different working for a sport management agency and then, or is it like not directly for FIT? You work for IMG, does that change your job a lot?
It doesn't change the job a lot, but there is a difference. Because IMG is now this big corporate conglomerate, especially since they merged giving schools a guarantee and then going back and making the money back in sponsorship sales, ticket sales, and everything else. So there is a disconnect to some degree. It matters from school to school that you're at as to how big that disconnect is. That makes sense to you? I think part of the issue that we had at Pitt prior to me being there is there was a disconnect more than they needed. And so Steve Peterson's been great to me. He was there the first trip I was there as an intern. And he's kind of brought us back in a little bit more to where we're part of that fold. I'm in their senior staff meetings, even though I work for IMG. I'm hearing stuff that's probably confidential, can't be relayed outside. So yeah, there is, but there isn't. Buccaneers had the best family atmosphere imaginable. And I do miss that because it was more of a close-knit type atmosphere. People had fewer employees. You know, we had fewer employees, which didn't have a huge ticket sales staff until the very last year. So you knew just about everybody. You know what I mean? And that's a great environment. It's kind of like this club you guys have here. You know most of each other, right? You know, you're going to stay in touch with Facebook and everything else as you go along. It was very similar. It's a very similar work environment. So imagine you guys being you, and you guys having different tasks and different avenues, and you still stay in touch, but now you're getting paid for it. That's what it was like working for Tampa Bay. Steelers have a very similar operation. Okay, I know those guys really well. All right, more questions. Somebody's got one. Somebody's got a good question. Professors, you guys have one? Dr. Crow, you got anything for me? Good. I'm good. All right. Is that it? Well, thank you guys very much for your time.
Morris and Kyle.
You have to push the little button on it. Remove that.
Okay, we'll just recap some important information from the beginning of the meeting here real quick. Reminder the Rocktober Open is October 14th, and log on to the website, www.rocktoberopen.com, and if you want to register for that or the dinner afterwards.
Spring registration meeting, October 25th, 12:30 at VSB Auditorium. Again, spring break trip to London, $130 deposit along with the application due November 1st. And also, if you'd like to speak with Mr. Jones, he'll be in the back, willing to answer different questions.
And Ali Zubi's running the homecoming week, so she wants you to vote for her.
And one other thing, if you do have any ideas for the SMA dues or the community service outreach that we're doing this spring, please come down and let us know.
And everybody give a round of applause to Amanda Castro. She got an internship at Disney today.